Hey guys, it's Christy and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, I'm going to be sharing my top 5 favorite eyeshadow palettes of 2023 so far. So before we get into it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy, and let's get into it. Okay, so I'm not actually ranking these 5 today. I will be doing a full ranking every single eyeshadow palette I tried in 2023 in December, so I'm not ranking these, but when I was going through my list I realized there haven't really been a ton of eyeshadow palettes released this year, but we are halfway through the year. This is the very end of June, so if you think about it, in a couple months holiday releases are going to start popping up everywhere. So I will have a lot more to talk about then, but for now I thought I would share my top 5 at this point in the year so far. So the first palette I wanted to mention is the most affordable, and this is the Milani Gilded Mini Palette in Whiskey Business. I don't want to stay here too long because I have raved about this a ton. I know this is a boring neutral matte brown eyeshadow palette, but I love this. This is such a great formula from the drugstore. I'm incredibly picky with drugstore eyeshadows. I just feel like that is the one category where the drugstore hasn't fully caught up. Some brands have understood the assignment, some are still trying to figure it out, but I think Milani really got it with this one. I haven't tried the other palettes they released in their Gilded Mini collection, but this one is so good. I've said before, I really wanted the Charlotte Tilbury Super Nudes, and then I got this instead, and I no longer need the Charlotte Tilbury because this has everything I want. If you love a good matte brown eyeshadow look, this will do it. These are so beautiful. They're blendable. They're more on the buildable side, but I love them so much. They look beautiful on the eyes. They did such a great job with this one. Love this formula. And if you're into mattes and you like browns, this is really all you're ever gonna need. From Huda Beauty, she released 2 new Matte Obsessions palettes, and I grabbed the Cool Matte Obsessions, and I absolutely love this. So this is a beautiful mauve pink color story, which if you're familiar with my channel, you know I absolutely love. I love this. So she does have 2 creamed powder formulas in here, which is usually more Natasha Denona style, but Huda did a really great job with these as well. I have been burned by her 9-pan palettes in the past, so I wasn't 100% sure if I wanted to test this one out, but I'm so glad I did because I think it's absolutely gorgeous. It is all matte, and I feel like this year I've really developed an appreciation for all matte eyeshadow looks. I do still tend to find myself digging into the shimmers. I just love a good sparkle, but I've definitely developed a new appreciation for all matte looks, and I think anything I create with this is so beautiful. They're so blendable, they work so well together. The mattes are just so blendable, so pigmented. I love this little palette. I debated on picking up the Warm Matte Obsessions, but I figured honestly, I probably have both of these in my collection somewhere, but this was definitely going to be a little bit more unique than the Warm Mattes. The next palette I wanted to mention is from Alter Ego. This is the Midsummer palette. I did receive an incredibly generous package from them, and I was so excited because they tend to create high quality alternatives to high-end products for a very affordable price point. So this one is supposed to be an alternative for the ABH Nouveau palette. This is only $17. The Nouveau palette is upwards of $50. I like this one more. So they're not absolutely identical. Looking at swatches of the 2, it does look like they are going to be absolutely identical. But on the eyes, this one pulled a little bit more neutral, which I prefer. The ABH pulls a little bit more warm. This one is definitely more on the buildable side, where the ABH is just incredibly pigmented right away. So that's really in your preference. If you prefer to build up shadows, you will definitely prefer this formula. Another thing that I really loved about this palette as opposed to the ABH is the layout of this palette. It just makes so much more sense than the Nouveau. The Nouveau seemed to be intentionally chaotic in its layout. This one is not. This one makes sense, and I love it. Huge credit to the Alter Ego team for creating something that is a very affordable alternative, giving it a better layout, and I love the neutral shades, and I really do enjoy the formula. I also thought the shimmer formula is amazing. It is very, very sparkly and very, very smooth. I also noticed when I was putting the shimmers on the eyes, I got less fallout with the Ultra Eco. So I wanted to mention that. They did give me a code if you would like to use it. It is just Christy, and that will save you 10% off their website. So feel free to use that if you would like. But I really, really enjoyed this palette. I also have their Coastal palette, which I am planning to try out very soon as well. All right, throwing it back to February, Pat McGrath released her Love collection, which I loved. I feel like this collection maybe didn't get as much love as it deserved. So she released 3 palettes in this collection. There wasn't all matte, which I didn't pick up. There was Iconic Infatuation, which is the more mauve color story. And then there's Sublime Seduction, which is this one. This one is the more warm tones. I love this one and Iconic Infatuation. It is really hard for me to choose which one I liked best. And typically I do prefer those more mauve cool tones to these warms, but at the same time, these really warm tones really flatter my blue eyes. So I did choose this one. The formula in these are so incredibly good. I think they were on sale at Sephora at one point, and if they still are, I would highly recommend picking them up because the formula in these is so, so good. The mattes blend out beautifully. They blend together in the most beautiful way. It takes so much work out of blending. The shimmers are absolutely gorgeous, and I just love any look I create with this palette on the eyes. Again, if you have blue eyes, these warm tone shades are going to look so good, and they're just going to enhance those blue eyes so beautifully. So highly recommend this collection if it's still available, and especially if it's still on Sephora on sale. I would highly recommend this one. I also think, like I mentioned, Iconic Infatuation is absolutely beautiful, but because I had to pick for my top 5, I chose the one that looks best with my eyes. And lastly is the most recent palette I tried out that I've been testing very thoroughly over the last month, and this is the Natasha Denona Yucca palette. So this one is absolutely beautiful. This one is a very green and yellow based, which isn't my most commonly reached for color story, but if I'm going to reach for greens, I can absolutely see this one being my new go-to. This is a beautiful, beautiful palette. I have said before that Natasha Denona has my favorite eyeshadow formula. That is still true. I love her eyeshadow formula so, so much. They just blend together so incredibly well. Like I was mentioning with the Pat McGrath, they just have a way about them that just works together so well. What's especially amazing about this palette is she has 4 of her sparkling foiled formulas in here, and they are some of the most sparkly formulas I have in my entire collection. They are so beautiful and so incredibly reflective that they make the metallic in here look lackluster. I love, love, love the sparkly shades in here. I will mention that a lot of the looks tend to look a little bit similar, but if that doesn't bother you, I think you would absolutely love this. And if you're not a fan of her cream to powder formula, there's only 2 of them in here, and that is Fushi and Calathea. Those are the only cream to powders, otherwise it is all mattes. But I've absolutely been loving this palette. I do have a full review up, as well as a 3 looks 1 palette if you'd like to check those out. But this palette is definitely going to continue to be very well loved in my collection. And that is it. Those are my top 5 favorite eyeshadow palettes so far for 2023. The rankings could be very different come year end. I anticipate these 5 still ranking quite high, but that is it for me today. Thank you so very much for watching. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload at least 3 new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!